All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the mini lecture number 2. And in this video, we will be talking about gene variation. So if you remember from the previous video, we talked about how most humans have 46 chromosomes, 23 you got from your mom and 23 you got from your dad. And we also talked about what a gene was, and a gene is an uninterrupted segment of DNA. And you got half of those from your mom and half of those from your dad. Now, paired chromosomes, if you actually go back to the previous slide, these are a pair of chromosomes right here. And you have one from your mom and one from your dad. That's a pair. So paired chromosomes carry genes for the same traits at the same location. And so these genes would be your eye color, thumb shape, hair color, etc. And so if we look at our paired chromosomes that we have here, we have one from your dad and one from your mom. And on the dad's chromosome, he has the trait for brown hair, and your mom's chromosome has the trait for blonde hair. Now, obviously, we don't go walking around with two colors of hair split down the middle. You're typically only displaying one, and which trait is being displayed, we'll talk about further along in this presentation here. So genes exist in many possible forms, and these possible forms are called alleles. So for example, eye color is the gene, and alleles are the variety of eye colors you could have. So blue, brown, green, hazel, black, etc. So I kind of like to think of genes as the category, and the alleles are the options within that category. So you could also think of a gene as a style of gene, like skinny jeans, and then you could get that same style of skinny jean in multiple colors. And so you can have that for your eyes. This also is the same thing for hair color, skin tone, etc. So this dude, Gregor Mendel, he is known as the father of modern genetics. His work that his experiments that he ran, he did in the mid-1800s. And so he didn't have any information on what DNA was or what chromosomes were because it hadn't been discovered yet. And so unfortunately, a lot of his work was largely ignored until about 20 years after he died. And so he looked at things like traits. He would crossbreed different pea plants, and he would be looking to see what the offspring's traits were. So we'd look at things like flower color, seed color, pod shape, plant height, etc., those sort of things. Now, one of the experiments that he ran involved crossbreeding two different pea plants that had different colored pods. So he crossbred in the first generation. Here, he crossbred one pea plant that had green pods and another pea plant that had yellow pods. And the offspring of that, those two pea plants coming together, all the pea pods were yellow. And then he took, two pea plants from this second generation that were both yellow and crossbred them. And he noticed that 3/4 of the pea plants had yellow pods and only 1/4 had green pods, whereas all the parents had yellow pods. So where did this green pod come from? He thought that this meant that there must be some sort of dominant trait that would be coming through. So now remember, we talked about a moment ago how genes exist in many possible forms, and these possible forms are called alleles. So we have terms that help us determine if both the chromosomes, one from our mom, one from our dad, in this pair of chromosomes are the same. So if the alleles are the same or if they're different, we have terms for that. So homozygous means that the alleles are the same. So that the allele that you inherited from your mom has, in this example, blonde hair, and the allele that you inherited from your dad is also blonde hair. So in this pair of chromosomes, they both had the same alleles. Therefore, these paired chromosomes are homozygous. Now, if the alleles are different, that means they are heterozygous. So again, looking at this example, the chromosome you inherited from your mom has the allele for blonde hair, and the chromosome that you inherited from your dad has the allele for brown hair. The alleles are different, therefore they are heterozygous. Now, which form of gene or the allele you exhibit depends on whether it is a dominant or recessive trait. Dominant traits will show up in you if you have at least one copy of that allele, whereas recessive traits will only show up in you if you carry both copies of that allele. So in this example here, we have a mother cat and a father cat. The mother has white fur and the father has black fur. All of their offspring have black fur. And so we are able to determine which is the dominant trait. In this example, the dominant trait is black fur and the recessive trait is white fur. Now, we are able to determine why all the offspring have black fur. So obviously, when looking at the mother cat here, since the white fur is the recessive trait, that means both copies of the allele have to be the same, because recessive traits will only show up if you carry both copies of that allele. So we are going to represent the recessive trait by using a little b, and we're going to represent the dominant trait using a big letter B. So we categorize the mom as she has both alleles the same, so that means she is homozygous, and it is recessive, so homozygous recessive alleles. Whereas the dad is going to be homozygous dominant, so he's got the dominant allele represented by two big B's. Now, looking at all their kittens, the parent is only able to give one of their chromosomes each to their kid. So we can go through and run through all the possible scenarios. So if the father was to give his first dominant allele and the mother was to give their first recessive allele, that kitten would be heterozygous, so the alleles are different, and that kitten would have black fur because it has one of the dominant alleles. And to have the dominant trait show up, you only need one copy of that allele. So then we look at the second kitten. So the second option here, the father donated the dominant allele here, and the mother donated the second recessive allele. So this kitten is also heterozygous, has the dominant and recessive traits. The third option, the father here donates his second dominant allele, the mother donates her first, the kitten is heterozygous, as the dominant and recessive traits. And lastly, the same thing here, the father donates his second dominant allele, the mother donates her second recessive allele, and that kitten is heterozygous. Big B, little b. Now, continuing on, so this is the same example here that was on the previous slide. We're going to pretend that these kittens are brother and sister, and they have offspring as well. And we notice right away that one of the kittens has white fur, which is the recessive allele. How is this possible when both parents have black fur? So we're going to do the same thing here that we did on the previous slide. We will notice that the father donated the first dominant allele, the mother donated the first dominant allele. So that kitten has homozygous alleles, meaning both the same, and they're both dominant, so homozygous dominant. The second kitten got the first dominant allele from the father, and the second allele here, the recessive allele from the mother, making the kitten heterozygous. The same thing here for the third kitten, got the dominant allele from the mother and the recessive allele from the father, making the kitten heterozygous. And the white-furred kitten, he got from the father, or she, the kitten could be either a girl or a boy. This kitten got the recessive allele from the father and the recessive allele from the mother. And in order for the recessive trait to show up, that means that they need to have both the recessive alleles. And so this kitten got both the recessive alleles from its parents and therefore has white fur. Now, this is a bit confusing with, the lines crossing over from both parents, and there's a lot easier of a way to display this information. And that is using Punnett squares, which we will talk about in the next lecture video. Thanks for watching. Please let us know if you have any questions.